Alright family, about to get it in. Alright, so the name of this presentation is called The Basics of the Biblical Hebrew Language, Understanding the History, Letters, Words, and Grammar by Brother Safaya, aka Divine Prospect. And again, I'm giving y'all some good insight because I want y'all to have the information that the elders have when they teach these sciences. I want y'all to have the tools that y'all need so that way you can go into the original manuscripts or even the artifacts and be able to decipher what you see for yourself and get an understanding of the concepts behind the language itself. Alright? So let's move forward. Alright, how to study the nature of ancient languages. You do it through history. What's history? The branch of knowledge dealing with past events. You do it through culture. What's culture? The behaviors and beliefs and characteristics of a particular social, ethnic, or age group. You do it through language. What's language? A body of words and the systems for their use common to a people who are of the same community or nation, the same geographical area, or the same cultural tradition. You do so utilizing anthropology. What's anthropology? The science that deals with the origins, physical and cultural development, biological characteristics, and social customs and beliefs of humans. You do so through archaeology, the study of human history and prehistory through the excavation of sites and the analysis of artifacts and other physical remains. You do so through paleography. What's paleography? The study of ancient writing, including determination of date, decipherment, etc. So these are the things that I utilize with all my presentations so people can see that we have some scholars in the Hebrew community that's well-rounded, and we want to use the sciences and the languages and the linguistics that's available so that way we can convey this message to the people. Alright, so let's move forward. Alright, the history of the development of the Hebrew language. Alright, in this portion I'm going to do a little bit of reading. I'm not going to do too much elaboration because the reading should explain for itself, but I need y'all to get the background before I dive into it. Alright? Okay. Hebrew belongs to the Canaanite group of languages. In turn, the Canaanite languages are a branch of the Northwest Semitic family of languages. According to Abraham ben Yosef, Hebrew flourished as a spoken language in the kingdoms of Israel and Judah during about 1200 to 586 BCE. Scholars debate the degree to which Hebrew was spoken vernacularly in ancient times following the Babylonian exile, when the predominant international language in that region was Old Aramaic. Hebrew was nearly extinct as a spoken language by late antiquity, but it continued to be used as a literary language and as a liturgical language of Judaism, evolving various dialects of literary medieval Hebrew until its revival as a spoken language in the late 19th century. The Giza calendar...
Use the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, okay. The Giza calendar also dates back to the 10th century BCE at the beginning of the Minoic period, the traditional time of the reign of David and Solomon. Classified as archaic biblical Hebrew, the calendar presents a list of seasons and related agricultural activities. The Giza calendar, named after the city in whose proximity it was found, is written in an old Semitic script, akin to the Phoenician one that through the Greeks and Etruscans later became the Roman script. The Giza calendar is written without any vowels, and it does not use consonants to imply vowels even in the places where later Hebrew spelling requires it. The Shebna inscription from the tomb of a royal steward found in Shalom dates to the 7th century BCE. Numerous older tablets have been found in the region with similar scripts written in other Semitic languages. For example, Proto-Sinaitic. It is believed that the original shapes of the script go back to Egyptian hieroglyphs, though the phonetic values are instead inspired by the acrophonic principle. The common ancestor of Hebrew and Phoenician is called Canaanite, as it was first used in a Semitic alphabet distinct from Egyptian. In its widest sense, biblical Hebrew means the spoken language of ancient Israel flourishing between the 10th century BCE to the turn of the 4th century BCE. It comprises several evolving and overlapping dialects. The phases of classical Hebrew are often named after important literary works associated with them. Let's move forward. Right? Archaic biblical Hebrew from the 10th to the 6th century BCE corresponding to the Minoic period until the Babylonian exile, keep that in mind, and represented by certain texts in the Hebrew Tanakh, notably the Song of Moses and the Song of Deborah, also called Old Hebrew or Paleo-Hebrew. Keep that in mind. It was written in the form of the Canaanite script. A script descended from this is still used by Samaritans. We're going to get into that. Standard Biblical Hebrew around the 8th to 6th centuries BCE, corresponding to the late monarch period and the Babylonian exile. It is represented by the bulk of the Hebrew Bible that attains much of its present form around this time. Also called Biblical Hebrew, Early Biblical Hebrew, Classical Biblical Hebrew, or Classical Hebrew in a narrow sense. Late Biblical Hebrew, from the 5th to the 3rd centuries BCE, that corresponds to the Persian period, is represented by certain texts in the Hebrew Bible, notably the Book of Ezra and Nehemiah. Basically similar to Classical Hebrew, apart from a few foreign words adopted for mainly governmental terms, and some syntactical innovations such as the use of the particle shall. Israeli Hebrew is a proposed northern dialect of Biblical Hebrew, attested in all eras of the language, in some cases competing with late Biblical Hebrew as an explanation for non-standard linguistic features of biblical texts. The Dead Sea Scroll Hebrew from the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE corresponded to the Hellenistic and Roman periods before the destruction of the Temple in Jerusalem, and represented by the Quran scrolls that form most, but not all, of the Dead Sea Scrolls, commonly abbreviated as DSS, also called Quran Hebrew. The Imperial Aramaic script of the earliest scrolls in the 3rd century BCE evolved into the Hebrew square script of the latest scrolls, and the 1st century CE, also known as the Katab Ashuri, which is the Assyrian script still in use today. Mishnaic Hebrew from the 1st to the 3rd or 4th century CE corresponded to the Roman period after the destruction of the Temple in Jerusalem, and represented by the bulk of the Mishnah and Tosefta within the Talmud, and by the Dead Sea Scrolls, notably the Bar Kokhba letters and the Copper Scroll, also called the Tanaic Hebrew or Early Rabbinic Hebrew. Alright? I'm going to finish up. Sometimes the above phrases of spoken Classical Hebrew are simplified into Biblical Hebrew and Mishnaic Hebrew. However, today, most Hebrew linguists classify Dead Sea Scroll Hebrew as a set of dialects evolving out of the late Biblical Hebrew and into Mishnaic Hebrew, thus including elements from both but retaining distinct from each other. By the start of the Byzantine period in the 4th century CE, Classical Hebrew ceases as a regularly spoken language. It's very important. Roughly a century after the publication of the Mishnah, apparently declining after the aftermath of the catastrophic Bar Kokhba War around 135 CE. That's also very important, because that's when the Paleo script started being used, okay? Around the 6th century BCE, the Neo-Babylonian Empire conquered the ancient kingdom of Judah, destroying much of Jerusalem and exiling its population far to the east in Babylon. During the Babylonian captivity, many Israelites were enslaved within the Babylonian Empire and learned the closely related Semitic languages of their captors, Aramaic. This is important. The Babylonians had taken mainly the governing classes of Israel, while leaving behind the presumably more compliant farmers and laborers to work in the land. This is where we get some of the origin of the Samaritans. Thus, for a significant period, the Jewish elite became influenced by Aramaic. After Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon, he released the Jewish people from captivity. The King of Kings, or the Great King of Persia, later gave the Israelites permission to return. As a result, a local version of Aramaic came to be spoken in Israel alongside Hebrew. Also, the Assyrian Empire before that caused Israel to speak a variant of Aramaic for trade, and Israel Judea, these languages commingled. The Greek era saw a brief ban on the Hebrew language. By who? The Greeks. This is important, alright? Until the period of the Hasmoneans, because they banged out, those Hebrews banged out, created a dynasty, and they fought against the Greeks, alright? By the beginning of the Common Era, Aramaic was the primary colloquial language of the Samaritan, Babylonian, and Galilean Jews. And Western and intellectual Jews spoke Greek, but a form of the so-called Rabbinic Hebrew continued to be used as vernacular in Judea until it was displaced by Aramaic, probably in the 3rd century CE. Certain Sadducee, Pharisee, scribe, hermit, zealot, and priest classes maintain an insistence on Hebrew, and all Jews maintain their identity with Hebrew songs and simple quotations from Hebrew texts. Other opinions exist on the exact date range from the 4th century BCE to the end of the Roman period. Alright, finishing up. While there is no doubt that at a certain point Hebrew was displaced as an everyday spoken language by most Jews, and that its chief success in the Middle East was closely related to the Aramaic language than Greek, scholarly opinions on the exact dating of that shift has changed very much. In the first half of the 20th century, most scholars follow Geiger and Dalman in thinking that Aramaic became a spoken language in the land of Israel as early as the beginning of Israel's Hellenistic period in the 4th century BCE, and that as a corollary, Hebrew ceased to function as a spoken language around the same time. Segal, Klausner, and Ben Yehuda are notable exceptions to this view. During the latter half of the 20th century, accumulating archaeological evidence and especially linguistic analysis of the Dead Sea Scrolls has disproven this view. The Dead Sea Scrolls uncovered in 1946 and 1948 near Qumran revealed ancient Jewish texts overwhelmingly in Hebrew, not Aramaic. The Quran scrolls indicate that Hebrew texts were readily understandable to the average Israelite, and that the language had evolved since biblical times as spoken languages do. Recent scholarship recognizes that reports of the Jews speaking in Aramaic indicates a multilingual society, not necessarily the primary language spoken. Keep that in mind, fam, alright? Alongside Aramaic, Hebrew coexisted within Israel as a spoken language. Most scholars now date the demise of Hebrew as a spoken language to the end of the Roman period, or about 200 CE. It continued on as a literary language down through the Byzantine period from the 4th century CE. Many Hebrew linguists even postulate the survival of Hebrew as a spoken language until the Byzantine period, but some historians do not accept this. After the Talmudic period, which is in 500 CE, various regional literary dialects of medieval Hebrew evolved. The most important is Masoretic Hebrew, a local dialect of Tiberias in Galilee that became the standard for vocalizing the Hebrew Bible and thus still influences all other regional dialects of Hebrew. This Tiberian Hebrew from the 7th to 10th century CE is sometimes called Biblical Hebrew because it is used to pronounce the Hebrew Bible. However, properly it should be distinguished from the historical Biblical Hebrew of the 6th century BCE. Keep that in mind. Whose original pronunciation must be reconstructed. Tiberian Hebrew incorporates the remarkable scholarship of the Masoretes, from Masoret meaning tradition, who added vowel points and grammar points to the Hebrew letters to preserve much earlier features of Hebrew for use in chanting the Hebrew Bible. The Masoretes inherited a biblical text whose letters were considered too sacred to be altered, so their markings were in the form of pointing in and around the letters. The Syriac alphabet, precursor to the Arabic alphabet, also developed vowel pointing systems around this time. The Aleppo Codex, a Hebrew Bible with the Masoretic pointing, was written in the 10th century, likely in Tiberias, and survives to this day. It is perhaps the most important Hebrew manuscript in existence. That's their opinion, but I say otherwise. Alright, fam? Alright, so we're going to move on. Archaeological inscriptions. Alright? What you got to understand is that I do a lot of my work to the conscious community. Sometimes, a lot of times I do it with the Hebrew Israelite brothers, but a lot of times I do it to the conscious community. And what I notice about my brothers and sisters in the conscious community, they want concrete information. They want concrete information. So what I do is that I give y'all concrete stuff so you can see the science, the architecture, the archaeology, the anthropology, everything, and linguistics behind the Hebrew culture. This is very, very important. All right. So I'm going to show you some archaeological inscriptions with the Hebrew language, the Paleo-Hebrew language, alright? Alright, the Shalom Tunnel inscription, 701 BCE, alright? That's the image right there. The Shalom inscription is a passage of inscribed text found in the Hezekiah Tunnel, which brings water from the Gihon spring to the pool of Shalom, located in the city of David in East Jerusalem, neighborhood of Shalom or Silwan. The inscription records the construction of the tunnel in the 8th century BCE. It is among the oldest extant records of its kind written in Hebrew using the Paleo-Hebrew alphabet, and its association with the tunnel provides evidence for the ancient biblical narrative. So this supports the biblical narrative in regards to the tunnel being created by King Hezekiah. And I have the 2 Kings chapter 20 verse 20. Y'all can check that out when you get a chance. You can see that the biblical claim is verified by this piece of archaeology. Let's move forward. All right. The Mesda Hashav Yahu Astrakhan from 630 BCE. Alright, that's the image right there. Located south of modern Tel Aviv Yafo, along the Mediterranean coast, a small Iron Age fortress known today as Mesdad Hashab Yahu was occupied for a relatively brief period during the latter half of the 7th century BCE. Archaeologists excavating the site in 1960 unearthed 7 inscribed items, including 6 ostraka written in Hebrew. Ostraka pottery shards that were reused after the pot was broken as a writing surface. Written on one of the pieces is the appeal of a farm worker whose garment was confiscated by a supervisor as collateral on the grounds that the worker failed to meet his daily quota on grain and owed the rest. The worker claims that he did meet the quota and appeals to the local governor to expedite the return of his garment. So now we have here the Hebrew culture, the law that's in the Hebrew Tanakh being employed by the layman. And we have it written here in the Paleo-Hebrew script from 630 BCE. You can check out Exodus chapter 22, verses 25 to 26 to get more information on the law that this worker was appealing to. All right, let's move forward. The Lachish Asuka from 586 BC. As you can see, I'm giving you chronology. All right. The Lachish letters, the Hoshea letters, are a series of letters written in carbon ink in ancient Hebrew on clay astraka. The letters were discovered at excavations at Lachish in Tel Ed Duir. Lachish is in Yisrael.
Move on that side.
Move on this side?
Yeah.
Okay, that's better? All right, so the shift focus. All right, that's good. Oh, okay. That's good.
Good?
Yeah. All right, that's better?
Yeah, you good.
All right, get your camera side.
Okay, I'm good.
Good? All right. So, the Lachish Asuka. Okay, the individual Asuka probably comes from the same broken clay plot and was most likely written in a short period of time. They were written to Joash, possibly the commanding officer at Lachish from Hoshea, a military officer stationed in a city close to Lachish. In the letters, Hoshea defends himself to Joash regarding a letter he either was or was not supposed to read. The letters also contain informational reports and requests from Hoshea to a superior. The letters were probably written shortly before the shift fell to the Babylonian army in 588 to 86 BCE. During the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah, Jeremiah 34:7 is a reference. The Asuka was discovered by J.L. Starkey in January-February 1935 during a third campaign of Welcome excavations. All right, let's move forward. Okay, the Jerukal ben Shelemiah seal from 586 BCE. All right, if you can see, this is a seal. All right, it has the Paleo-Hebrew in it. Belonging to Yehuku, son of Shelemiyahu, son of Shavi. The book of Jeremiah twice mentions Yehuku, which is Jehuko in English Bibles, son of Shelemiah, indicating that this bulla dates to the late 7th, early 6th century BCE. The bulla was found in excavations of the city of David, and Jeremiah 37:3 gives you a little bit of biblical claim and insight in regards to this archaeology. So we have archaeological facts that validate the stuff that we're talking about. All right, fam? I don't know if they can see me on there, but I think it's cool.
It's good.
It's good? All right.
Because when I throw this up, see, that's not the one that's going to stay up. This is the one that goes up.
All right, gotcha.
I got everything zoomed in on this. This is good.
All right, coins from the second Jewish revolt. That's called numismatics, right? Numismatics is when you deal with the science of studying coins and how they be used to barter for services and goods, etc. All right? These are all these ancient coins from 132 to 135 CE. This is coins during the second Jewish, it should be really Hebrew Israelite revolt, all right? Bar Kokhba revolt coinage were coins issued by the Jews during the Bar Kokhba revolt against the Roman Empire of 132 to 135 AD. During the revolt, large quantity of coins were issued in silver and copper with rebellious inscriptions, all being overstruck over foreign, mostly Roman coins. When a file was used to remove the designs of the original coins, such as the portrait of the Roman emperor, the undercoin can clearly be seen on some of the silver coins because they were not filed down so as not to lose the value of the silver. On the bronze coins, it is very difficult to see the underlying coin because they were filed down prior to the overstriking. In rare instances, the coin cracked when it was overstruck. So what this is showing is that the Hebrews really banged out, right? When they was going in, they revolt against the Roman Empire, they created their own monetary and economic system, and they put their own stamps of their language, of their culture on these coins, and they overstruck it over the Roman emperor, the Roman different Roman signs that was on it, because they were showing their rebellion against the Roman Empire. They banged on it. All right, so don't forget that. But that's another discussion. All right, let's move forward. All right, now let's deal with the manuscript evidence. We touched on that archaeological evidence. Now we're going to deal with the manuscript evidence. All right, here we go. First thing we got up is the silver scroll, dated to 600 BCE. All right, what is the silver scroll? Okay, the silver scroll, it says on it, "Speak to Aaron and his sons, thus shall you bless the people of Israel. Say to them, the Lord bless you and protect you. The Lord deal kindly and graciously with you. The Lord bestow his favor upon you and grant you peace. Thus they shall link my name with people of Israel, and I will bless them." That's Numbers 6:23 to 27. In Numbers 6:22 to 27, the priests were instructed to bless the people of Israel with a three-part blessing known as the priestly blessing or the priestly benediction. The words of this blessing appear on two small silver amulets discovered in the Hinnom Valley south of Jerusalem's old city. The amulets date to around 600 BCE, hundreds of years before the oldest known copy of any biblical manuscript that we have presently today. Amulets are common throughout the ancient world and are still used today to protect the wearer from spiritual and physical evils. The inscriptions on these amulets conclude with the parts of the priestly blessing. Let's move forward. The Septuagint dates approximately 300 to 132 BCE. As you can see, this is written in the Koine Greek. Alright? What is the Septuagint? The Septuagint, meaning 70, is a translation of the Hebrew Bible, because they translated from a Hebraic source, manuscript that was written, of the Bible, and some related texts in the Koine Greek. The title and its Roman numeral acronym LXX refer to the legendary 70 Jewish scholars who completed the translation as early as the late 2nd century BCE. As the primary Greek translation of the Old Testament, it is called the Greek Old Testament. This translation is quoted in the New Testament, particularly in the Pauline epistles, and also by the Apostolic Fathers and later Greek Church Fathers. Alright, the traditional story is that Ptolemy II sponsored the translation for use by many Alexandrian Jews who were not fluent in Hebrew but fluent in Koine Greek, which was the lingua franca of Alexandria, Egypt, and the East Mediterranean at that time. The date of the 3rd century BCE given in the legend is supported for the Torah translation by a number of factors, including the Greek being representative of early Koine, citations beginning as early as the 2nd century BCE, and early manuscripts datable to the 2nd century. Alright, let's move forward. The Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, this is approximately 300 BCE to 70 CE. As you can see, I have two manuscripts up here. I have one manuscript that's in the late Hebrew and one that's in the Paleo Hebrew. Because if you look at the body of the corpus of the Dead Sea Scrolls, you see that they have some in the late Hebrew, which is a dialect of the Aramaic as far as written, and they also had the Paleo Hebrew. Keep this in mind. This is very important, fam, alright? So what's the Dead Sea Scrolls? The Dead Sea Scrolls, in a narrow sense of the Quran cave scrolls, are a collection of some 981 different texts discovered between 1946 and 1956 in 11 caves from the immediate vicinity of the ancient settlement of Khirbet Qaram in the West Bank. The caves are located about 2 kilometers inland from the northwest shore of the Dead Sea, from which they derive their name. The texts are of great historical, religious, because they include the second oldest known surviving manuscripts of works later included in the Hebrew biblical canon, along with the Deuteronomical and extra-biblical manuscripts which preserve evidence of the diversity of religious thought in the Second Temple Judaism. Most of the texts are written in Hebrew, with some in Aramaic, and a few in Greek. Most texts are written on parchment, some on papyrus, and one on copper. Alright? The large consensus is that the Quran cave scrolls date from the last 3 centuries BCE and the 1st century CE. Bronze coins found at the same sites form a series beginning with the John Hyrcanus, which is 135 to 104 BCE, and continuing until the First Jewish-Roman War in 66 to 70 CE, supporting the radiocarbon and paleographic dating of the scrolls. Manuscripts from additional Judean desert sites go back as far as the 8th century BCE to as late as the 11th century CE, fam. Do you hear that? That's dates for y'all. Alright? The Nash Papyrus from 150 to 100 BCE. What's that? The Nash Papyrus is a collection of 4 papyrus fragments acquired in Egypt in 1898 by W.L. Nash, the Secretary of the Society of Biblical Archaeology. He presented them to Cambridge University Library in 1903. They comprise a single sheet and are not part of a scroll. The papyrus is of unknown provenance, although allegedly from Fayum. The text was first described by Stanley A. Cook in 1903. Though dated by Cook to the 2nd century AD, subsequent appraisals have pushed the date of the fragments back to about 150 to 100 BCE. The papyrus was by far the oldest Hebrew manuscript fragment known at the time before the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947. Okay, it's 24 lines long with a few letters missing at each edge. The papyrus contains the 10 Commandments in Hebrew, followed by the start of the Shema Yisrael prayer. Alright, let's move forward. The Samaritan Pentateuch from 122 BCE. It's good stuff, fam, alright? Good stuff? Giving them that evidence, man. Alright? The Samaritan Pentateuch, also known as the Samaritan Torah, is a manuscript of the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, written in the Samaritan alphabet and used as a scripture by the Samaritan. It constitutes the entire biblical canon. Some 6,000 differences exist between the Samaritan and Masoretic texts. Most are minor variations in the spelling of words or grammatical constructions, but others involve significant semantic changes, such as the uniquely Samaritan commandment to construct an altar at Mount Gerizim. Okay, nearly 2,000 of the textual variants agree with the Koine Greek Septuagint and are shared by the Latin Vulgate, meaning that it came from a similar source as the Hebrew source that the Septuagint was derived from. Okay, the Samaritans attach special importance to the Abisha scroll used in the Samaritan synagogue at Nablus. It consists of a continuous length of parchment sewn together from the skins of rams that, according to the Samaritan tradition, were ritually sacrificed. The text is written in gold letters. Rollers tipped with ornamental knobs are attached to both ends of the parchment, and the whole is kept in a cylindrical silver case and when not in use. Samaritans claims it was penned by Abishua, great-grandson of Aaron. 1 Chronicles 6 and 50, you can read it. 13 years after the entry into the land of Israel, under the leadership of Joshua, son of Nun, although contemporary scholars describe it as a composite of fragmentary scrolls that may each have been penned by the 12th or 14th century CE. Alright, let's move forward. This so you can get an idea of what the Samaritan script looks like. This on this end here, right here, this is the modern Hebrew, and you can see the evolution of the Samaritan script. Alright? The Samaritan script is also derived from the Paleo-Hebrew. It's the most modern rendition of the Paleo-Hebrew that we have today in literary form that we have preserved in parchment. Alright? Let's move forward. More manuscripts. The Wadi Marubaat manuscripts from 132-135 AD. Excavated in January 1952, caves found 11 miles south of this site. Manuscripts was found dating to the time of the Simon Bar Kokhba revolt. Archaeologists found in Cave 2 fragments from the books of Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, which is the Torah, along with Isaiah. Also, one of the oldest papyrus manuscripts of the Minor Prophets was discovered. This manuscript was nearly identical to the Masoretic script, affirming a standardization of the text by the 2nd century. Only 3 variants existed. Alright? Move forward. The Syrio-Aramaic Peshitta from the 5th to 12th century CE. Alright? This is in a Syriac. The Syriac is the eastern dialect of the Aramaic. Alright? The general but not universal consensus is that the Old Testament, the Peshitta, was translated into Syriac from the Hebrew probably in the 2nd century AD. The word itself is a feminine form meaning simple, as it is easy to be understood. It seems to have been used to distinguish the version from others which are encumbered with marks and signs and the nature of a critical apparatus. However, the term as a designation of the version has not been found in any Syriac author earlier than the 9th or 10th century. As regards to the Old Testament, the antiquity of the version is admitted on all hands. There's addition, however, that part of it was translated from Hebrew into Aramaic for the benefit of Hiram in the days of Solomon is surely a myth, or it could be an exaggerated legend. That a translation was made by a priest named Asar-Ezra, who the king of Assyria sent to Samaria to instruct the Assyrian colonists mentioned in 2 Kings 17 is equally legendary. That the translated Old Testament New Testament was made in connection with the visit of Thaddeus to Abgar at Edessa belongs also to unreliable tradition. Mark has even been credited in ancient Syriac tradition with translating his own gospel and the other books of the New Testament in Syriac. But what Theodore of Mapusitchia says in the Old Testament, both true. These scriptures were translated into the tongue of the Syriacs by someone indeed at some time, but who on earth this has not been made known down to our day. F. Crawford Burrick concluded that the translation of the Old Testament was probably the work of the Jews, of whom there was a colony in Edessa about the commencement of the Christian era. Alright, moving forward. This right here is the Syriac, and this is very, very interesting when we get into the Syriac, because it helps us look at the comparison of juxtaposing the Old quote-unquote Testament to the New Testament and show you the similarities and textual variants. Alright, right here is the English letters. Alright, the Syriac has 22 letters, just like the Hebrew has 22 letters. Alright, let's move forward. More evidence. Cairo-Geniza fragments from 870 to 19th century CE. Alright? Take a look at this. Alright? What is this? The Cairo-Geniza is a collection of some 300,000 Jewish manuscript fragments that were found at the Geniza or storeroom of Ben Ezra Synagogue in Futstat at Old Cairo, Egypt. The manuscripts outline a 1,000-year continuum of Jewish, Middle Eastern, and North African history and comprise the largest and most diverse collection of medieval manuscripts in the world. The Geniza texts are written in various languages, especially Hebrew, Arabic, Aramaic, mainly on vellum and paper, but also on papyrus and cloth. In addition to containing Hebrew religious texts such as biblical, Talmudic, and later rabbinic works, the Geniza gives a detailed picture of the economic and cultural life in the North African and Eastern Mediterranean regions, especially during the 10th to 13th centuries. It is now dispersed among the number of libraries, including the libraries of Cambridge University and University of Manchester. This is very, very important if you want to see the interaction between a Hebrew community and culture with the North African culture, fam. Alright? Let's move forward. Alright, last but not least, the Masoretic text. We have two major codexes, the Aleppo Codex from the 9th century CE and the Leningrad Codex from the 10th century CE. Alright? The Masoretic text is the authoritative Hebrew text of the Tanakh for rabbinic Judaism. Keep that in mind. However, contemporary scholars seeking to understand the history of the Hebrew Bible's text use a range of other sources. That's very important. These include the Greek and Syriac translations, which I showed you, quotations from rabbinic manuscripts, the Samaritan Pentateuch, which I showed you, which is the Samaritan Torah, and others. Many of these are older than the Masoretic text and often contradiction. While the Masoretic text defines the books of the Jewish canon, it also defines the precise letter text of these biblical books, with the vocalization and accentuation known as the Masorah. The Masoretic text is widely used as the basis for translations of the Old Testament and Protestant Bibles, and in recent years, since 1943, also for some Catholic Bibles, although the Eastern Orthodox churches continue to use the Septuagint as they hold it to be divinely inspired. In modern times, the Dead Sea Scrolls have shown the Masoretic text to be nearly identical to some texts of the Tanakh, dating from 200 BCE, but different from others, alright? The manuscript was primarily copied, edited, and distributed by a group of Jews known as the Masoretes between the 7th and 10th century CE. Though the consonants differ little from the text generally accepted in the 2nd century, it has numerous differences in both greater and lesser significance when compared to the manuscripts of the Septuagint, a Greek translation, and of the Hebrew scriptures that was popular in use in Egypt and Israel. The oldest extant manuscripts of the Masoretic text dates from approximately the 9th century CE, and the Aleppo Codex, once the oldest complete copy of the Masoretic text but now missing its Torah section, dates from the 10th century. Alright, let's move forward. Now, once we got past the archaeology, once we got past the paleography, now we're going to get into the mindset. So when people tell you that the Bible was written by a white man, okay, they make you think that the content and the vernacular that's used in the text itself is conveying the thought of Europeans, and that's false. Now I'm going to show you this, and I grabbed this excerpt. And I got these excerpts from this book that I'm going to show you at the end. I'm going to give you the bibliography, and you're going to see how we're able to tell you that the Bible itself, if it's Hebrew in origin, is not written by the white man. Because you hear this a lot, right? So I'm going to go ahead and get into some evidence for you, okay? Now, let's understand this. Ancient Hebrew thought. The definition of a word is going to be directly related to the culture in which that word is being used. Because first you have the history of a people. The history determines the culture determines the language. Very important. History, culture, and then language. So if you want to understand language, you have to research the history, the migration patterns, were they agricultural, were they hunter-gatherers, etc. That will determine the culture, and then that will determine the language. This is very important for any ancient civilization if you want to study them, alright? Alright, one word may have different meanings that it's using it. In order to place the correct context to a Hebrew word from the ancient Hebrew language, one must first understand ancient Hebraic thought. Okay? Abstract and concrete. Greek thought views the world through the mind. Abstract. Ancient Hebrew thought views the world through the senses or empirical data. Concrete thought is the expression of concepts and ideas in ways that can be seen, touched, smelt, tasted, or heard. All 5 of the senses are used when speaking, hearing, writing, and reading the Hebrew language. An example of this can be found in Psalm 1:3. He is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in the season, and whose leaf does not wither. In this passage, the author expresses his thoughts in concrete terms, such as tree, streams of water, fruit, and leaf. Abstract thought is the expression of concepts and ideas in ways that cannot be seen, touched, smelled, tasted, or heard. Examples of abstract thought can be found in Psalms 103 and 8. The Lord is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love. The words compassion, grace, anger, and love are all abstract words, ideas, and cannot be expressed by the senses. Why do we find these abstract words in a passage of concrete thinking Hebrews? Actually, these are abstract English words used to translate the original Hebrew concrete words. The translators often translate it this way because the original Hebrew makes no sense when literally translated into English. Why? Because English is a European language and it's not a melaninated language like Hebrew. Okay? Let's take a look. Let's take one of the above abstract words to demonstrate the translations from a concrete Hebrew word to an abstract English word. Anger, an abstract word, is actually the Hebrew word af, which literally means nose, a concrete word. When one is very angry, he begins to breathe hard, and the nostrils begin to flare. You see that, fam? The nostrils begin to flare. Okay? A Hebrew sees anger as a flaring of the nostrils. If the translator literally translated the above passage slow to nose, the English reader would not understand. Why? Because you're dealing with European Hellenistic thought versus melanated Hebraic thought. This is very, very important. If anything else I say to you that's going to drive the rest of this lecture is this information right here, okay? Appearance and functional descriptions. Greek thought describes objects in relation to its appearance. Hebrew thought describes objects in relation to its function. A Greek description of a common pencil would be, it is yellow and about 8 inches long. A Hebrew description of the pencil would be related to its function, such as, I write words with it. Notice that the Hebrew description uses the verb write, while the Greek description uses the adjective yellow and long. Pay attention, fam. Because of Hebrew's form of functional description, verbs are used much more frequently than adjectives. To our Greek way of thinking, in America, a deer and an oak are two different objects, and we would never describe them in the same way. The Hebrew word for both of these objects, ayil, because of the functional description of these two objects, are identical to the ancient Hebrews. Therefore, the same Hebrew word is used for both. Well, what do you mean? The Hebraic definitions, lamed, yud, and aleph, is a strong leader. A deer stag is one of the most powerful animals of the forest and is seen as a strong leader among the other animals of the forest. The wood of the oak tree is very hard compared to other trees and is seen as a strong leader among the trees of the forest. Notice that the two different translations of the Hebrew word ayil in Psalms 29:9, the New American Standard Bible and the King James translated as the voice of the Lord makes the deer to calve, while the NIV translates it as the voice of the Lord twists the oaks. The literal translation of the verse in Hebrew thought would be the voice of the Lord makes strong leaders armed, right? When translating the Hebrew into English, the Greek thinking translator will give a Greek description to the word for the Greek thinking reader, which is why we have two different ways of translating this verse. The same word ayil is also translated as ruler, a strong leader among men in 2 Kings 24:15. Ancient Hebrew will use different Hebrew words for the same thing, depending upon its function at the time. For example, an ox may be identified as this right here, which is an ayin, this is a wav, a lamed, and an aleph, when referring to a lead ox, right? Or you'll have, what you have is resh here, you have a wav and shin, when referring to a plow ox. Then you have bakar, which is a bet, which is a kaf, and which is a resh, when referring to an ox of the field, or a par when referring to an ox of the threshing floor. So when they describe things in the environment, they do it based on its function. This is much different than when you deal with the Greek, Hellenistic, English, German way of thought, which deals with appearance, abstract. Hebrews were very concrete. And if you know anything about indigenous tribes in Africa, indigenous tribes in Australia, indigenous tribes anywhere, even in North and South America, Native Americans, they were the most extreme empiricists. They dealt with things in the environment based on its function and based on a concrete understanding of that object and what it meant to them. They didn't really apply all of these Greek and Hellenistic and English abstract ideologies to the terms. They were very simple people, okay? They lived in a system, a scientific system, where they were engaged with their own environment. So everything was based on the environment. So when you have an environment that's conducive to your survival, you're going to think based on staying in harmony with that environment. But when you have an environment that's hostile, like ancient Europe was, you're not going to be thinking about that. You're going to be in caves contemplating on future things, abstract things. Very, very important. Let's move forward. All right? Static and dynamic. Very important. These three precepts I'm giving you is for us to understand the Hebraic language. In our modern Western language, verbs express action, which is dynamic, while nouns express inanimate or static objects. In Hebrew, all things are in motion, including verbs and nouns. In Hebrew sentences, the verbs identify the action of an object, while nouns identify an object of action. The verb, which is kaf, which is lamed mem, which is malach, is the reign of the king, while the noun kaf, lamed mem, melech, is the king who reigns. Every noun is an action, and every name is a verbal noun. Okay? A mountaintop is not a static object, but the head lifting up out of the hill. Keep this in mind. I'm going to read that again. A mountaintop is not a static object, but the head lifting up out of a hill. This is how they viewed mountains. A good example of action is what appears to be a static passage is the command to have no other gods before me. And Hebrew thought this passage is saying not to bring another one of power in front of my face. The source for this is the ancient Hebrew lexicon, all right? This is good stuff because this gives you insight into the Hebraic mindset, so you can see it was created by indigenous melaninated people. They were not Europeans. And the reason why I'm giving y'all this information in these tools, so you can take it and go back and decipher these manuscripts that I showed you on there, and also decipher these archaeological artifacts. Alright, this is a primer into the Hebrew language. This is not in depth because we'd be here for weeks if I was going through all the nuances of Hebrew, but this is going to give you a great understanding of the context behind the language. Alright, now the 4 elements of ancient language. All my Kemetic brothers will agree with this. The ones who deal with ancient Kemet, anybody that deals with any ancient civilization, whether it be Sumer, whether it be the Sanskrit, the people who wrote in Sanskrit in the Indus Valley, anywhere, you're going to have 4 forms of ancient language. This is very, very important. Very important, all right? Let's see what they are, sir. Pictographs or pictograms. What are those? Concrete items in the environment. Ideograms, abstract concepts in the environment. Logograms, written words in a sentence. And phonograms, which are sounds of letters and words. That means that when language developed, they first looked at the environment and every item in the environment. Okay? The ancient Kemetic civilization did this, the ancient Hebraic civilization, the Sumerian civilization. They looked at the environment and they looked at the concrete items in the environment, and that became the pictograph. So they used these items to start displaying or communicating with one another. Then they added ideograms, which is the abstract understanding. They superimposed it onto that physical object. Now they say, okay, so now we see what this is, this is what it means to us and how we can convey it. Now we have to pen it down. So now you get what's called a logogram, is when they take these items, they create the scripts of them, and they put it together or syntax them to create words. Then you have the phonograms. The phonograms are the determinants or the indicators that let you know what are the vowel pronunciation of these words. Very, very important, all right? And like I said, my brothers who deal with the Sumerian civilization and the Kemetic civilization will attest to this because it's the same science when you study the language in ancient Hebrew, all right? Let's move forward. Now, getting for the juicy part, the part that my brother Sinetta asked me to do. He wanted me to break down the letters of the Hebrew. I'm going to give y'all some good stuff, all right? A lot of this information, even a lot of us in the Hebrew community are not aware of. And I want to put my brothers on, and I also want to give it to the conscious community so that way you can understand the Hebrew language. So when somebody speaks it, when you see it written, when you see it on an artifact, you can get some understanding of the melanated people behind it and what they were trying, the message they were trying to convey in the actual artifacts or manuscripts, all right? This way we can stay out of that English Bible, because that English Bible was written by translated by Europeans. And as we're going to see, they inserted a lot of different things in it, but when you go back to the manuscripts and the artifacts, it's a totally different thing. So now I'm going to equip y'all with the science that you need to delve into this thing so you can extract the substance and be able to put it in your mind so you can determine what's being said and you can be objective yourself, all right? You ready for this side? This is your part, side.
Let's go.
And mind you, I did this presentation specifically for Sinetta because when I teach the Hebrew, it's like, but I condensed it and streamlined it all into this one good thing because Sinetta said, yo, brother, you know the Hebrew? You know the letters? I said, yes, I know the letters, but I don't know it in the same sense that other Hebrews do. I know it from a conceptual, from a pictogram, an ideogram, a phonogram, and a logogram perspective. All right? So here we go. Remember everything that I told y'all riding up to this point because we're going to get into the letters. You ready, Si?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. All right, now, I'm going to preface it with this, all right? Get it over here, Si. I'm going to preface it with this. I also dived into the Allen Gardner sign list. So my Kemetic brothers, those who are aware of Egyptology, you know that this is one of the standards in Egyptology when deciphering the actual logograms or pictograms that we read in ancient Kemet. All right, whether it's the papyruses, the wall reliefs, etc. So I took that because I want y'all to see the similarity between the Hebraic mind and the ancient Kemetic mind. So you can see the relation. This is very, very, very important. All right? Y'all ready? Here we go. All right, now, the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet is the Aleph. Everybody say Aleph. Aleph, right? The Aleph is a pictogram of an ox head or a bull head, right? Then here in the middle is the Paleo-Hebrew script. So this would be similar to, let's say, the Medunetic writing or the Medunetia. This would be similar to the hieratic, which was used for administration and business. And this right here would be the modern Hebrew. As you can see, a lot is lost from the pictogram to the modern Hebrew. And from my research, I believe that was done by design for the priesthood to hide the information from the people. But guess what? I'm going to give you the information the priesthood housed for years. I'm going to give it to the masses. All right? Now, what does the ox head symbolize? Strength, power, leader. And our alphabet is the A. It gives the A sound. Or it can also be silent too, depending on what the diacritic mark is underneath. What is the Aleph? The original pictograph for this letter is a picture of an ox head, representing strength and power from the work performed by the animal. This pictograph also represents a chief or other leader. When two oxen are yoked together for pulling a wagon or plow, one is the older and more experienced one who leads the other. Within the clan, tribe, or family, the chief or father is seen as the elder who is yoked to others as the leader and teacher. The modern Hebrew name for this letter is Aleph, and corresponds to the Greek name Alpha and the Arabic name Aleph, or Aleph in Arabic. The various meanings of the root are oxen, yoke, and learn. Each of these meanings is related to the meanings of the pictograph of the ox head. The root, Aleph, is an adopted root from the parent root Al, meaning strength, power, and chief, and is the possible original name of the pictograph of the ox head. The Lamed is a shepherd's staff and represents authority as well as a yoke. Combine these two pictograms together, meaning strong authority. That's where you get Al or El or Il from. The chief or father is a strong authority. Alright? The Al can also be understood as the ox and the yoke. Many Near Eastern cultures worship the god El or El, and we're going to get into that. Alright? Most commonly pronounced as El and depicted as a bull in carvings and statues. Israel chose the form of a calf as an image of God at Mount Sinai, showing the association between the word Al and the ox or bull. Alright? The concept of the ox and the shepherd's staff is the word Al has been carried over into modern times as the scepter and crown of a monarch. So when you see a monarch that has a crown, and you see all these spikes coming out the crown, that's representative of the ox horns. And the staff that he has is representative of the shepherd's staff. That's how they got this ideology. Alright? In modern Hebrew, this letter is silent, but was originally used as a vowel A, as well as a glottal stop. Alright? The Greek letter alpha, derived from the Aleph, is also used from the A sound. Alright? Then it goes to show the early Semitic pictograph was simplified, and it shows you all these images here. Alright? Now, I'm going to show you. If you go to Alan Gardner's sign list, you'll see that E1 is the picture of a bull. And it has the same, now mind you, I went through the Alan Gardner sign list, and it was if you ever read the sign list, it's a whole bunch of pictograms from the Medunetia. And what I did was, I said, okay, from my interpretation, let me find the closest related pictogram in the ancient Kemetic language to the Hebraic language, so we can see the close relations between one another, fam. This is very important. Remember, I'm about unity. This is very, very important. All right. So let's move forward. The second letter is Bait or Bat. All right. As you can see here is a symbol here that looks like a maze almost, but that's actually a floor plan of a tent. The Paleo Hebrew is right next to it. The modern Hebrew, and it's in our modern English as a B. Well, what is that symbol? The tent floor plan. What does that represent? The family, the house, or in, the preposition in. Alright? Several variations were used for the original pictograph, including all these images here. Each of these pictographs are representative of a house or tent. The pictograph Bet is chosen as it best represents the nomadic tents of the Hebrews. The tent was divided into two sections, men's and women's, with the entrance at the front of the tent in the men's section and an entrance from the men's to the women's section. The Hebrew word Bet means house or tent as well as family. A common designation for a family is to identify the house or the family patriarch, such as in the house of Jacob or Yaakov. Alright? It says the meanings of this letter are house, tent, family, as well as in, with, inside, or within, as the family resides within the house or tent. The original name for this letter is Bet. The parent root of the child root Bet, meaning house, is equivalent to the Greek name Beta and the Arabic Bet. This letter is pronounced as a B when sounded as a stop, such as in the word Bet or Ba, when sounded as a spirion, as in the word Shabbat, right, or Shov. This letter is commonly used as a prefix to words to mean in or with, as in Bet Eret, meaning in a land. The early Semitic letter evolved into this, this, and that. So this just gives you a little bit of information on that. Now, I looked in the Alan P. Gardner's list, and we have here, O1 is a symbol of a house. We also have O4, which is a seed shelter in the fields. So you can look this up in the Alan Gardner list. This is very, very important. We're going to move on to the third letter. Third letter is Gamal, and that is a symbol of a foot, or in the Paleo Hebrew is a symbol of a camel hump, which represents motion as well, carry. Then you have the modern Hebrew, then you have, it's in our English, the G or the G sound, right? The earliest known pictograph for this letter is this, and it's a picture of a foot. The modern Hebrew name for this letter is Gimel, an adopted root. The original name to this letter is most likely Gam, the parent root of Gimel. This letter is the origin of the Arabic Gim and the Greek Gamma, supporting the theory that the original name for the letter did not include the L. The word Gam means to gather together as a group of animals gathering at the water hole to drink. The pictograph script for the word Gam is this. The L is the foot representing walk, and the Mem is water. Combined, these means walk to the water. The letter L has the meanings of walk, carry, or gather. The sound associated with this is the G, as in go. Alright? And as you can see here, it's the foot. It means to gather, walk, or carry. Alright? Let's move forward. Oh, wait. Let me go back. Alan P. Gardner lists D58 of the foot. Same meaning, same context. Alright? Let's move forward. Alright? Next letter is Dalet. Okay? Dalet, look here. This is a picture of a tent door. This is right here. This looks like a Pythagorean symbol. Then we have the modern Hebrew, and it's our English, the D. Alright? It represents the tent door as in movement, hang, or enter. Now, there are two possibilities for the original early Semitic pictograph for this letter. A picture of a fish and a picture of a door. The modern Hebrew name for this letter is Dalet, meaning door. The word Dalet is a derivative of the parent root Dal, also meaning door. The Arabic name for this letter is Dal, giving support to the parent root as the original name. As the Hebrew word for a fish is Dag, it is unlikely that the pictograph is the pictograph for the letter, but rather the pictograph for a door. The basic meaning of the letter Dalet is door, but has several other meanings associated with it. It can mean a back and forth movement, as one goes back and forth through the tent, through the door. It can mean dangle, as the tent door dangled down from the roof pole of the tent. It can also mean weak or poor, as one who dangles their head down. Okay. The second for this letter is a D. The sound for this letter is a D, as in door, as it is with the Greek and Arabic equivalents. Now, if you look in the Gardner list, sign list, you have O31, which is the door, and O32, which is the gateway. And both of these together give you the same understanding, the metronomic understanding of the Hebraic dialect. All right, let's move forward. Now, next letter is He, or Ha. It's a picture of a man with his arms up. All right. Then we have this Paleo Hebrew symbol, the modern Hebrew, and it's our English H. Well, what does that represent? A man with his arms raised, which means breath, look, reveal, towards, looking towards something, focusing towards something. All right? Hey, the original pictogram for this letter is this: a man standing with his arms raised out. The modern Hebrew and original name for this letter is He or Ha. The Hebrew word He means behold. And we say that today. Hey, my man, what's up? Hey, to get somebody's attention. Right? As when looking at a great sight. The word can also mean breath or sigh, as when one does when looking at a great sight. The meaning of the letter He is behold, look, breath, sigh, a reveal or revelation, from the idea of revealing a great sight by pointing it out. The modern Hebrew sound for this letter is H. Originally, the letter doubled as a consonant with the H sound, or as the vowel sound E. When the Greeks adopted this letter, it became the epsilon with the eh sound. The letter is commonly used as a prefix to words to mean the, as in the haaretz, meaning the land. The use of the prefix is to reveal something of importance within the sentence. Then if you look in the Alan P. Gardner's list, you have it with the as to embrace. You have it with the arms, the man with the arms raised, and also with a man with his arm raised as in prayer or worship. This is A18, 19, and A30, I believe. All right. It's kind of blurry on there, but look in the garden list or an A. It'll tell you the occupations of man. It'll tell you man and his occupations, and it'll give you the metronetia in regards to this. And again, it's the same pictographic meaning in the Hebrew. All right, let's move forward. Wav. As you can see, it's an image of a tent peg. All right, this is the Paleo Hebrew. This is the modern, and it's in our English the wa or the W sound. What does that mean? A tent peg, meaning to add, secure, or hook. And it has the sound, alright? The original pictograph used in the early Semitic script is the tent peg, a picture of a tent peg. The tent peg were made of wood and may have been Y-shaped to prevent the rope from slipping off. And you'll see this when you go camping and hiking and you set up your tent. When you do these tent pegs, they're split in the middle, so when you tie a rope, it doesn't pull off, alright? The modern Hebrew name for this letter is Wav, a word meaning peg or hook. The letter is used in modern Hebrew as a consonant with the V sound and as a vowel, and that's in the Masoretic script or the Tiberian vocalization, alright? If the modern Hebrew letter appears as this, it is a vowel meaning ow. And if it appears as this, it's talking with the diacritic marks is on the Wav, it is the vowel sound When used as a vowel, the ancient pronunciation was also an ow or In each of the consonant vowel letters of the ancient Hebrew language, the pronunciation of this is closely related to the pronunciation of the vowel, such as the letter hey or ha or I, and the pronunciation of the letter yud, as in y or I. For this reason, it is probable that the original pronunciation of the letter wav is a w. That's very, very important. All right. In modern Arabic language, this letter is also pronounced as a W. Therefore, the original name of this letter would have been Wav instead of Vav. We're going to see this later on when we move forward. As the pictograph indicates, this letter represents a peg or a hook, which are used for securing something. The meaning of this letter is to add or secure. The letter is frequently used as a prefix to words to mean in the sense of adding things together. And as you can see here, I have the Allen P. Garner 030, which is a supporting pole in the Medrash. Remember, I looked through the entire sign list and I found the equivalent for each of the Hebraic letters, alright? For my Kemetic brothers out there, alright? Let's move forward. Zayin. And as you can see, this is the symbol here, the pictogram. This is the paleo, this is the modern, and this is our Z. What is that? It's a metach, or a plow. It's used to represent food, cut, weapons, nourish. Alright, Zan. The ancient pictograph for this letter is that it is some type of agricultural implement similar to a matak or a plow or a hoe. Okay? The meanings of this letter are harvest or crop, as their tool is used in harvesting. Food, as from the harvest. Cut, from the function of the implement, and broad from its shape. The modern Hebrew name for this letter is Zayin, but was originally the parent root Zan. When the Greeks adopted the letter, its name was originally Zan, but later became Zeta, the modern name for this letter in the Greek alphabet. The phonetic sound for this letter is a Z, as in the Greek and Arabic, alright? And if you look in the Allen P. Garner, U4, I believe that's a 4, it's the symbol of a hoe that you use for irrigation, alright, in agriculture. Alright, let's move forward. Okay? Next letter is the Chit. The Chit is where you have the guttural sound, right? The hit, right here, if you see here, it looks like a domino almost. The paleo looks like a domino. The modern, it has the CH as in Bach. Okay? Now, what is the hit? It's a tent wall, meaning outside, divide, or half. Hits. It says the ancient pictograph is a picture of a tent wall. The meanings of this letter are outside, as the function of the wall is to protect the occupants from the elements. Okay? As the wall in the middle of the tent divides the tent into male and female sections, and secular as something that is outside. Alright? The modern Hebrew name for this letter is chet, meaning a string. A very similar word, Hebrew word is chet, is a wall, and is most likely the original name for this letter. The sound of the letter in ancient and modern times is the guttural chet, as in Bach in English, okay, or as in German, Bach. If you look in 036, that's the Allen P. Garner. You can see it's the wall in regards to separation. All right, let's move forward. Next letter is the tit, right? It's a symbol of a basket. All right, this is the pictogram. This is the paleo. This is the modern, etc. All right, it means basket. It means to surround, contain, or mud, because the baskets were made out of mud, not wicker. If you look at the baskets in ancient Kemet, they made their baskets out of wicker, right? All right, or straw. The original pictograph for this letter is this: a container made of wicker or clay. Containers were a very important item among the nomadic Hebrews. They were used for storing grain and other items. Wicker baskets were used as nets for catching fish. The meanings of this letter are basket, contain, store, or clay. The 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Tav, or T sound. It is unlikely that the original Hebrew had two different letters for the same word. When the Greeks adopted the Hebrew alphabet, this letter became the Greek theta. The original sound for this letter is probably the th, as in th sound. The modern Hebrew name for this letter is tit, meaning mud or clay. but would have been pronounced as thet. All right. If you look at Alan P. Garner, it's V30, and that has a wickerwork basket. All right. Same kind of ideogram behind both pictograms. All right.
Divine,
Yes, sir.
Cabal called me. He's out of work because we started late, man.
Yeah.
We started like about an hour late.
Okay.
So we're gonna have to go over to the thing, you know.
Okay.
And
So
you still got probably about another 40 minutes.
okay. So I'm gonna get as much done.
Know.
And can I come back and finish the rest if I
Hell
have
yeah.
to? Okay.
Hell
Cool.
yeah.
All right. So next is the yud.
Yeah.
Okay. The yud is a picture of an arm, a picture of this, and this, right? The Paleo Hebrew, the modern Hebrew, etc. It means hand and arm, which means to work, throw, or worship, right? The early Semitic pictograph for this letter is this, an arm and hand. The meaning of this letter is work, make, and throw. The functions of the hand. The modern Hebrew name yud is a derivative of the two-letter word yad, meaning hand, the original name for the letter. The ancient and modern pronunciation of this letter is the Y. In ancient Hebrew, this letter also doubled as a vowel with the I sound. The Greek language adopted this letter as the iota carrying over the I sound, right? And this is D36, which means the forearm in the Alan H. Garner's sign list. Let's move forward, right? Kaf, all right? This is a pictogram here, the Paleo Hebrew, the modern, and it's our English K. What does that symbolize? The open palm of the hand, to bend, to open, allow, to tame. The Kaf, the ancient form of this letter, the open palm of the hand. The meanings of this letter are bend and curve from the shape of the palm, as well as to tame or subdue as one who has been bent to another's will. The modern Hebrew name for this letter is Kaf, a Hebrew word meaning palm, and is the original name for the letter. This letter is pronounced as a K, as in the word Kaf, when used as a stop or as a KH, which you normally have as a suffix, all right? Pronounced hard like the German name Bach, as in the word Yalak. Now, the difference is the hit is a ha. You do a ha, and the kaf is a ha. All right? And when you learn guttural stops, you'll understand what that means. All right? As the word Yalak when used as aspiriant. All right? D48, I believe that's D48, but it's in the D section. It's a hand without a thumb. It's the palm in the Alan P. Garner list. Let's move forward. Lamed. Lamed is this image here. This. Well, what is that? The shepherd's staff, which means to teach, yoke, towards, or bind. The early Hebrew pictograph is the hook symbol, a shepherd's staff, okay? The shepherd's staff was used to direct sheep by pushing or pulling them. It is also used as a weapon against predators to defend and protect the sheep. The meaning of the letter is toward, as moving towards something in a different direction. This letter also means authority, as it is a sign of the shepherd, the leader of the flock. It also means yoke, a staff on the shoulders, as well as tie or bind from the yoke that is bound to the animal. The letter is used as a prefix to nouns, meaning to or towards. We'll get into that later. The modern Hebrew name of this letter is Lamed, similarly to the Greek name Lambda. Okay, the Arabic name, however, is Lam, or Lam, retaining an older two-letter root name for the letter and the probable original name. The phonetic sound for this is the la sound, like we get in English, as in long or length. All right. Alan P. Garner S38 is the crook. All right, look that up. All right, moving forward. Next letter is the mem. All right, this is the pictogram, the Paleo Hebrew, the modern Hebrew, and it's our letter M. Well, what does that represent? Water. It means chaos. Remember the primordial waters? Chaos. Same thing with the Bible, Genesis 1 and 2. The waters was in chaos. Tahu Vahu was in chaos, right? Mighty, blood, or a flow of something. The early pictograph for this letter is that image there, picture of waves of water. This pictograph has the meanings of liquid, water, sea, mighty, and massive from the size of the sea, and chaos from the storms of the sea. To the Hebrews, the sea was a feared and unknown place. For this reason, the letter is used as a question word: who, what, where, when, why, how, in a sense of searching for an unknown. Now you get the idea behind it. The modern Hebrew name for this letter is Mem, probably from the word Memyin, meaning water. The word Mayin is the plural form of Ma, probably the original name for this letter, meaning what. The Greek name for this letter is the Mu, a Hebrew word closely related to Ma. The sound of this letter is the M. If you look at N33 in the Alan P. Garner list, it's the ripple of water. Same ideogram between both pictograms, all right? Let's move forward. The Nun. See the nun right here? It looks like a little sperm cell, right? Or it could be a plant sprout, a seed sprouting. This is the Paleo Hebrew. This is the modern Hebrew. It's our English N. It's a sprouting seed, which means continue, air, sun, The ancient pictograph is a picture of a seed sprout representing the idea of continuing to a new generation. The pictograph has the meanings of continue, perpetuation, offspring, or heir. The modern Hebrew name is nun, a Hebrew word meaning continue, offspring, or heir. The two-letter word is the original name for the letter. The phonetic sound for this is the letter N. And if you look at M22, it's a rush which shoots. That is the closest I was able to find in regards to the Kemetic Medunetia, alright? Let's move forward. Semek. Okay, Semek is this image here, Paleo-Hebrew, modern, and English S. It's a thorn, which means grab, hate, protect. Alright, it's similar to our X in English, alright? Sin, or Semek, is, there are several possibilities for the original Semitic pictograph, and it gives you a couple there. The pictograph that we see here is used almost exclusively through the history of this letter. This picture has the meanings of pierce and sharp. This letter also has the meaning of a shield, as thorn bushes were used by the shepherd to build a wall or shield made to enclose his flock during the night to protect them from predators. Another meaning is to grab hold, as a thorn is a seed that clings to the hair or clothing. Alright? Of all the letters, this is the most difficult to reconstruct due to the limited archaeological and textual support. The modern Hebrew name for this letter is Samech, which is a word that means support, with no apparent connection to the two-letter parent root or the meaning of the original picture of this letter. The Arabic alphabet does not have this letter, and the Greek letter derived from this letter is the Greek side, right? The 21st letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which is Shin, has two names and sounds, Shin and Sin. All the words using the Sin are related in meaning to the words using Samek. Very important that they were interchangeable, right? And you'll see the dot at the top of the Shin that indicates whether it's a Sin or a Shin sound. Alright, it's a Shin. All the words using the Sin are related in meaning to the words using a Samek in the same place as a Shin. This is mostly in the Paleo-Hebrew. It is possible that the original name for the Samek was Sin, meaning thorn, and later was divided into Samek and Sin. The original sound for this letter must be an S or a S sound, to which the Samek and Sin both agree. The Greek sound for this is the Ch, with a K silent, similar to S. If you go to M44, it means thorn, and the Allen Gardner sign list. Let's move forward. Ayin, picture of an eye. You have the Paleo and modern. The eye, which means to watch, know, or shade. Ayin, the ancient picture for this letter is a picture of an eye. This letter represents the idea of seeing and watching, as well as knowledge, as the eye is the window to the soul, or to knowledge. The name of this letter is Ayin, a Semitic word meaning eye. This letter is silent in modern Hebrew. There is no indication that ancient Semitic had a sound for this letter as well, and appears to have been silent in the past. The Greek language assigned the vowel letter O to the letter. As Hebrew did not have one letter for the O sound, the Greeks took this silent letter and converted it into a vowel. Now, as you can see, we look in the Matres Lectionis, which I'll deal with later. You see that this also had the A sound as well in the Paleo-Hebrew or the ancient Semitic language. Okay? If you look at D4 in the Allen H. Gardner list, it represents the I, same ideographic meaning. Ideogrammic meaning, alright? Let's move forward. The pet, okay? It's a picture here, this picture, modern Hebrew, etc. It means open mouth, it means to blow, to scatter, the edge, okay? As the lips are the edge of the face, right? The Semitic word ped means mouth, and there are several ancient Semitic pictographs believed to be this letter, none of which resemble a mouth. The only exception is the South Arabian pictograph, which is that there. This pictograph closely resembles a mouth and is similar to the later Semitic letters for the letter pet. The pictograph has the meanings of speak and blow from the functions, remember functions, of the mouth, as well the edge of something from the lips at the edge of the mouth. The modern Hebrew name for this letter is peh, and as previously identified, it is the Hebrew word mouth. There are two sounds for this letter, the stop and the variant f, alright? And that's D, can't see that letter, D21. But if you look in the section of D and the Allen Gardner list, look for mouth. And it has the same ideogrammic meaning. Let's move forward. The Sadeh. There's the image right here.
Hold up.
Paleo Hebrew.
The Sadeh. Hold up, wait for Sadeh.
Okay. Okay, just bear with us 1 second, fam.
Alright, the Sadeh, yeah.
Alright, the Sadeh. Well, what is the Sadeh? Destination and path. It means a trail, journey, or to hunt. Alright? The three ancient pictograph possibilities of this letter are this, and this, what it shows. The word side, meaning side, as a man lying on his side, and may be the meaning of the last two pictographs. Most ancient Semitic alphabets and pictographs, which closely resemble the last pictograph, indicating that this was most likely the original form of the letter. The meaning of this letter is the side of something, as well as hunting and chasing through the idea of laying down an ambush. The modern name for this letter is Sade, a child root from the word sad, meaning side. The phonetic sound of the letter is a TS. Sometimes it can be a silent. The T is mostly silent in both ancient and modern Hebrew. Now, if you look in the Alan P. Garner list, sign list, A33 is a man with a stick. Means he's on his journey or he's traveling. And it's also, we have the throw stick, which is T14, I believe, the throw stick, which is used for hunting. And both of these give you the same ideograms that can be used for Sade. Alright, let's move forward. Alright, we're getting close to the end. Cuff, a cuff, right? There's a picture here, pictogram, the Paleo Hebrew, the modern Hebrew, etc. What does that mean? Sun at the horizon, meaning condensed, circle, time. The quaf, most of the pictographs used for this letter are this or that. Ancient Semitic letter, which were originally oriented in a horizontal place, were tilted to a vertical plane. More than likely, this letter was originally written as what we see there. The name of this letter is Qaf, a parent root. When all of the words derived from this parent root are compared, the common theme of circle or revolution are found. The pictograph of this letter is probably a picture of the sun at the horizon in a sense of a revolution of the sun, science. Alright? The various meanings of this letter are sun, revolution, circle, horizon. This letter can also mean condensed, as the light gathers at the sun when it is at the horizon. It can also mean time, as the revolution of the sun is used to calculate time. Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic agree that the sound for this letter is the Q sound. The modern Hebrew and Arabic name for this letter is Qaf, a parent root. Now, if you look at N5, I believe that's a 5, you'll see that the Alan Gardner sign for that is the sun. You can look at that. Look up the sun and under the category N in the Alan P. Gardner sign, alright? Resh. Resh. We have a picture right here of a man's head. We have the Paleo Hebrew, the modern, and it's our English R. What is it? A man's head. First, top, beginning. It means first, top, and beginning. The ancient picture for this letter, which we see here, the head of a man. This letter has the meanings of a head or man, as well as chief, top, beginning, or first. The modern Hebrew name for this letter is Resh, a Hebrew word meaning head. Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek agree that the sound for this letter is R, okay? And if you look at D1, it means a head and profile in the Alan H. Gardner list. Look up the sign list. You'll see D1 is a head and profile, and I have all the information here that shows you it's the same ideogram as this pictograph here for the English race. Let's move forward. Shin. Right here, we have an image here. We have this Paleo Hebrew, the modern Hebrew, it's the SH. It means two front teeth, means sharp, press, eat, or two, right? As in your two front teeth. The ancient picture for this letter is what we see here, a picture of the two front teeth. This letter has the meanings of teeth, sharp, and press. It also has the meaning of two, again, both, or second from the two teeth. The modern Hebrew name for this letter is shin, a Hebrew word meaning tooth. Hebrew and Arabic both agree for this letter as in sh. If you look at D24, it's the upper lip with teeth in the Mejunecha or the Alan Garner sign list, alright? Let's move forward. The last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. We went through 21 letters. This is the last letter. Alright? It's the Tav. Okay? It looks like a cross, an X. This is the modern Hebrew. It's the TH or the T sound in English. The two cross sticks, which means the mark, sign, or signal. Okay? The ancient picture of what we see the T is a type of mark, probably of two sticks crossed to mark a place similar to the Egyptian hieroglyph of what we see here. A picture of two cross sticks. This letter has the meanings of mark, sign, or signature. The modern Hebrew, Arabic, and Greek names for this letter is Tav or Tav, a Hebrew word meaning mark. Hebrew, Greek, and Arabic both agree that the sound for this letter is the T sound. If you look at Z19, I believe, or Z9, in the Alan Gardner list, you'll see it means two sticks crossed. It's the same ideogram for both pictographs. All right. Now, why is this important? Because now you get to understand the language when you see the letter syntax. Because we see that you had a pictogram, you had a pictogram, an ideogram, you had a logogram, and a phonogram. So with the pictogram and the logogram, okay, and the ideogram, when we syntax these letters together, we start to create words. But these letters, which signify something in the culture, gives precedence or gives a meaning or enhancement to what the word says. Well, what are you talking about? Alright? What you talking about, Willis? Right? Alright? So looking at letter syntax, we have to understand about roots. Parent roots, child roots, and adopted roots. Alright? When two pictographs are put together, a parent root is formed. Alright? When a bet is combined with a nun, the parent root, ben, is formed. The two letters of this root have the combined meaning of the house of seeds, or the seeds that continue the house family. The parent root are often used in biblical texts as words themselves. While these words are usually specific in nature, their original meaning was very broad. The Hebrew word nun means son. The more original broad meaning of the parent root nun or bait is to build a house for the family. This can be seen in the various other derivatives of the parent root having the meanings of build, house, bricks, and children. Alright? The child root. So we're coming from a single root to a parent root to a child root. Alright? Child roots formed out of the parent roots are 13 different child roots. The first is formed by doubling the last letter of the parent root. Hebrew verbs require a 3-consonant root in order to be conjugated. That's very important. Therefore, the second consonant in the parent root is duplicated to the turn of the 2 consonants. Parent root and a 3-consonant child root. The meaning of the derivative form of the parent root is usually identical in meaning to the original parent root, which is the 2 letter syntax together. The other 12 child roots are formed by placing a vowel within the parent root. Of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, 4 double as consonants and vowels, like we saw, the metres lectiones, which is the aleph, the hey, the wav, and the yud. Okay? A child root is formed by adding one of the consonant vowels as a prefix, a suffix, or an infix, very important, to the parent root. All the child roots formed from the parent root are directly related in meaning to the parent root. Table 6 below, as the child roots form when the parent root B and L, right, vowel, which has the generic meaning of flow, demonstrated the close relation between the parent and the roots. So if you see here, you have the different infixes and the prefixes and suffixes from the parent root of 2 letters, which is the bait and the lamed, and when you vary them and add an infix, suffix, or prefix to the parent root, now you start to get your words, such as you have abel, which means a wilt or flowing away of life. You have the habal, which means empty or the flowing out of content. You have the bahal, which means a panic of flowing out of the insides. You have a aged, which means the flowing away of the youth. You have a flood right here, which is a heavy flowing of water. And you have the yabal, which means a stream or flowing of water. And you can see when you vary the parent root with different suffixes, prefixes, and infixes, and you get your trilateral consonants, you actually create words, but they all come from a parent root. Let me show you what I'm talking about. The adopted root. An adopted root is a 3-letter root that is formed out of a parent root. These roots evolve over time out of the original parent roots. Adopted roots are formed by adding a 3rd consonant to the parent root, forming a new root that is more specific in meaning than the parent. Table 7, adopted roots form out of the parent root, which is par, which is the generic meaning to break, are listed. Each of the adopted roots have a more precise meaning of to break. You have here, which means to break forth when you have the pei, the resh, and the het. To break apart when you have the pei, the resh, and the kaf. To break in pieces when you have the pei, the resh, and the samek. Break off when you have the pei, the resh, and the kaf. And to break open when you have the pei, the resh, and the sadeh. As you can see, it's the same root, which means to break. But when you add another infix, it becomes an adopted root to the original parent root, and that produces a variation in the meaning of the word. Alright? Now look here at the image I have here. First, at the root, you have the at the root, you have the letters. Every single letter is the root of the language. Then you have the trunk. The trunk part of the tree is the parent or the bilateral syntax, where we have the parent roots. Then you have the branches, which are the child or the trilateral consonants that are derived by adding an additional consonant to the parent root. And then finally we have the leaves, and the leaves are the variations of the child or the variations of the parent, which is additions to trilateral consonants. Okay? And this is where you get your real words in Hebrew. So think of this image of a tree. Alright? The character words. Alright? I'm going to go through this and drink a little water because my voice is a little hoarse. But let me show you how awesome the Hebrew language is, right? And how it's so easy to grasp when you understand this concept of what I'm saying. The first letter, katab, which means to write. Now, how do we know that katab means to write? How do you decipher that? Let me show you. The first letter is the kaf, and the kaf is a symbol of a man's hand, right? The second symbol is the tav. The tav is a symbol of a cross. Remember, to mark, to sign, or a signature. Then you have the bet, which means the house. So we know that katab means to write because when you were writing something in ancient times, you use your hand to mark a symbol on something, and most of the time writing was done in the home. So when you decipher katab, the trilateral consonants K, T, and B, you get right because the hand makes marks or symbols on a vellum or papyrus within the home. This is how you get writing. See all some of this side? That's cool, right? Then you have Alma. Well, how does Alma mean a virgin or handmaid? This is really going to blow you mind. This myself. You have the Ayin, the Lamed, the Mem, and the He. So how does this have anything to do with a virgin? Or a virgin or handmaid is any woman that has met her age of puberty. Well, let's look at it like this. The Ayin, means you are watching something, or let's say you're watching a tree and watching the fruit ripen within a tree. Well, how do you know the fruit is ripened in the tree? Or how do you know a person is ripened or becomes to the age of puberty? Well, we have the Mem and the He. The Mem is symbolic of a flow of blood. And the He is the man beholding the sight. What does that mean? When a woman reaches puberty, she has a flow of blood. And when a person sees it, then they know she's ripe. Ripe for what? Look at the Lamed. The Lamed is a shepherd's staff and is used to pull one thing, object towards another. So when the woman is ripe, we know she's ripe or ripe to be pulled towards a covenant of marriage when we see the flow of her blood. And that you get the word Alma. And that's a virgin handmaid. That's good stuff, right, Sam?
Yes, sir.
And that's how you syntax these letters, and this is how you understand the character of these words. Alright? Earlier I discussed Ben. Ben is the bait and the nun. When you put the bait and the nun together, it means son of or child of. Why? Because the seed of the home is the offspring of the home, and this is how you know child or son of. Why do you get this? Because when you syntax these two letters, it gives you a picture because they were dealing with concrete items in the environment, and they added ideograms to these pictographs. The last one I have here is what? Or up, right? And that means a mark. Well, how come UWT, a trilateral consonant, means a mark? Well, we have the Aleph, the Wav, and the Tav. Well, what does that mean? The Aleph represented the ox, right? Then you have the Wav. The Wav represented a tent peg, or it could represent a tact, or it could represent a hook, or something to fasten or secure something. And then you have the Tav for a sign. Well, what does that mean? How do we know that means mark? Because in their culture, they would take the bulls and they were fastening a mark to the bull, and that mark would be the brand to represent who owns that bull. This is how you get the word Oth, which means mark. Just like we saw that the Most High put a mark on Cain, they were putting marks on their cattle or their livestock. This is how we're able to define the word by looking at the character, the character of the letters. This is very, very important, fam, all right? Now I'm going on prefixes. Now, Son, how much time we got?
Oh, you driving? You driving, right?
How much time we got?
Okay, you're gonna meet me over here, 140.
I'm going to do prefixes real quick while he goes.
That's why I asked you was you driving.
Alright, understanding conjugation, the definite article, and prepositions. How can we decipher
Say it again?
conjugations, the definite article, and prepositions in the Hebrew? Alright, look. Articles, conjunctions, and prepositions. Specific letters are used in Hebrew to represent the article, conjunction, and preposition or prefix to nouns. Alright? Below are all of these prefixes attached to the Hebrew word eretz. Alright? We have ha-eretz, which means the land, which has a hey prefix to eretz. Va-eretz, which means and a land, because we have wav attached to it. La-eretz, which means to the land, because we have a lamed affixed to it. Be-eretz, which means in a land, because we have the ba affixed to it. We have me-eretz, which means from a land, okay? Because we have the me affixed to it, and we have the kaf, which means like a land. Well, how do we know what these, articles, conjunctions, and prepositions represent in Hebrew? Well, the Hebrew letters will give you the understanding behind it, okay? Sanada told me I need to wrap it up, so I'm going to finish the prefixes, and then I'm going to do a part 2 to the lecture so we can get the rest of it. It's either going to be later on today or another time before I bounce. But okay, but then I'm going to break down the second part of y'all because I really want to also get into dealing with a couple of things that I had this board right here for. Because I want to show y'all something in regards to language. You see that board? I'm going to get in on that board too. All right? You saw Brother Polite do his thing on there. I'm going to do my thing on that board too so you can see some things, right? But let me go through this real quick, all right? How do we know that the ha, when you take the ha and you prefix it to a word, because remember, Hebrew is read from right to left, how do we know that that means the? Well, we have the symbol he, which is a man focused on a particular site. So So anytime you use the definite article the, you're referring to one specific particular thing. Why? Because the man, his hands raised, is looking towards and fixated on a particular site. That's how you know the had means the. How do you know that the wav means and? Well, when you look at the wav, it's the tent peg, and a tent peg is used to hold together a tent or used to fasten items. So conjunction is when you take one phrase or one word and another phrase, another word or clause, and you combine them together, or you syntax them together, because that's the exact same thing that the tent peg did. It syntaxed things together. The lamed. How do we know that the lamed means two? Well, the shepherd's staff, a shepherd's staff was used to hook and pull the sheep towards him or to him. This is how we know by looking at the actual ideogram behind the pictograph. We can see that lamed, when affixed as a prefix to a Hebrew word, means towards. How do we know that the preposition bet means in? Because people live in a tent. How do we know that mem means from? Because when the people will go hunt in the river, they will pull, guess what? They will pull items from the water. Or when a baby is delivered, he's being pulled from the flow of blood of the woman, or from the flow of the fluids that come from a woman. This is how we know that mem means from. Kaf, which is the symbol of the hand, means like. How do we know that means like? Because items of sizes are compared to the hand or even to the arm. This is how you have the cubic measures, okay? From the tip of the your middle finger all the way to your elbows, which is a cubic measure. So they would use the hand to compare things, as in like or as. We get metaphors and similes. This is how, when we look at the actual characters of the letters, we can understand how they're used when they're syntaxed or affixed as prefixes in regards to words. Alright? Now this is the last part. I got, I think, 2 slides left, so is that good?
That's good.
2 slides? Alright. Verb conjugations, alright? The aleph. When we have the aleph prefix to a verb, alright, when prefix to a verb set indicates first person singular future tense. Keep this in mind. First person singular future tense. How does that translate in English? I will say. Amar means I will do something, alright? The yud, when prefix to a verb stand, indicates a third person future tense, meaning he will or they will when you see yud affixed. A nun, when prefix to a verb stand, indicates first person plural future tense, as in we will, alright? The tav, when prefix to a verb stand, indicates one of the following: a third person singular feminine future tense, which is she will; second person future tense, you will; and biblical Hebrew third person plural feminine future tense, as in they will. You have to look at the context. Oops, that's okay. You gotta look at the context of the sentence to be able to determine what's being used there. The shin, when that's affixed to a letter as a prefix, it means that, which, who, or whom. When the wav is affixed, it changes past tense to future tense and vice versa. So when you have a yud affixed, it means I will, but when you affix a wav or prefix a wav to a yud prefix, it makes it a completed action or a past tense. Alright? Now, I'm going to stop here at suffixes because I don't want to go too further in it, but I gave you a bulk of the Hebrew language. This is part 1. We're going to have to break it up into 2 parts because we're kind of running late on time. But we're going to break it up into 2 parts. In this first section, I hope y'all was able to really get the meat of the Hebrew language. The rest of this, I'm going to go into showing y'all how to utilize the tools that we just learned, how to employ them in a Hebrew manuscript. Alright? Because this is very, very important, fam. Why is this very, very important? Because when you look at all of these tools, this is what the people who study the language utilize when deciphering the actual manuscripts and artifacts. Now I'm giving you people, I'm giving y'all the tools so y'all can decipher the manuscripts and the archaeological artifacts the same way that the professionals do. So that way the message or the language is no longer esoteric. Now I'm giving y'all the esoteric from the esoteric, and I'm allowing it to flow out so you can take these tools, you can use it to decipher the text, and you can build your own selves up in the knowledge of understanding that this text was written by melanated people and not no Hellenistic Europeans. They just did the translation. They cannot come up with these things, alright? Because language, as we know, first appeared in ancient Kemet, Sumer, and in the Levant region. Alright? So thank y'all for watching part 1. Part 2 is going to be